In 1941, the British Army in North Africa was in a panic. Their own tanks were breaking down in the sand, and Rommel's Panzers were tearing them apart. They were desperate for anything that could move. When the first shipment of American M3 light tanks arrived, the British looked at them and almost laughed. It was tiny. Its armor was thin. Its gun looked like a pea shooter. It looked like a child's toy compared to the German monsters. But after 1 week in the desert, they stopped laughing. They gave it a nickname, Honey. Not because it was sweet, but because it was a honey of a tank, a machine that simply refused to die. While the over-engineered German tanks were turning into 60-ton paperweights in the heat, this little American toy was racing circles around them. Today, we're deconstructing the M3 Stuart, the tank that was technically too weak to win, but was too reliable to lose. To understand the M3, you have to understand the panic of 1940. France had fallen in 6 weeks. America's tank force was a joke, mostly machine guns and cardboard-thin armor. The U.S. Ordnance Department had to build a tank yesterday. They didn't have time for a masterpiece. They took an old chassis, slapped on thicker steel, and shoved in an aircraft engine. Yes, a radial engine meant for planes. This was a stopgap machine, a compromise born of pure necessity. But that aircraft engine became the Stuart's secret weapon. It gave the M3 a power-to-weight ratio that made it the fastest thing on tracks. A 433 ton. The desert miracle, why it was a honey. When the British first took the M3 into battle against Rommel, they discovered something shocking. In the brutal, grit-filled sands of North Africa, mechanical reliability was more important than armor. The British Crusader tanks were sophisticated, but they broke down if you looked at them wrong. The Stuart, you could redline the engine for hours, skip maintenance for days, and it would still start on the first crank. For a tanker, a weak tank that moves is 1,000,000 times better than a powerful tank that is stuck in the mud. The M3 was the first time Allied soldiers realized that American industry didn't just build weapons, they built appliances of war. But the desert was only the beginning. In 1942, the Stuart went to the Pacific. Here, its weaknesses became its greatest strengths. In the thick jungles of Guadalcanal, a 30-ton Sherman would have sunk into the swamps or collapsed the wooden bridges. The 14-ton Stuart? It was like a mountain goat. It could climb trails that the Japanese thought were impassable. Against the thin Japanese Type 95 tanks, the Stuart's 37mm gun wasn't a pea shooter. It was a laser. It became a mobile pillbox, a bunker buster that could navigate between trees where no other armor could go. In the Pacific, the Stuart wasn't a light tank. It was the king of the jungle. The story takes a dark turn on the Eastern Front. America sent 1,600 Stuarts to the Soviet Union. The Russians, used to the massive T-34, hated the Stuart's high profile and thin armor. They called it a grave for 5 brothers. But even the cynical Red Army had to admit one thing. The transmission and engine were magic. While Soviet tanks required a sledgehammer to shift gears, the Stuart was smooth, fast, and dependable. They stopped using it as a tank and started using it as the world's most lethal scout car. They realized that you don't send a Stuart to fight a tiger, you send a Stuart to find the tiger so the heavy guns can kill it. By 1944, the Stuart was a relic. In the fields of Normandy, a German Panther could destroy a Stuart from 2 miles away. The 37mm gun was now officially a toy, but did the US Army retire it? No. They leaned into the Outlier strategy. They stripped the Stuart of its heavy gear and turned it into a pure scout. It became the eyes of the armored columns. It used its incredible speed to dart into a village, draw fire, and race away before the Germans could even traverse their turrets. It was a dangerous, high-speed game of cat and mouse, but it was a role only the Stuart could play. The math of reliability. The M3 Stuart proves a fundamental law of war that the Axis never understood. The best tank is the one that shows up. A German Tiger was a jewel, irreplaceable and temperamental. A Stuart was a workhorse, numerous and unkillable. For every German tank that broke down on the side of the road, there was a honey 5 miles ahead, cutting supply lines and sowing panic. It wasn't a brawler, it was a disruptor. It won the war by being the tough little machine that was everywhere the Allies needed it to be, from the Sahara to the Solomon Islands. The M3 Stuart was a compromise that became a legend. It was too small for Europe, too light for Russia, but just right for a world at war. So we ask you, if you were a scout 20 miles behind enemy lines, would you rather be in a slow, powerful tank that might break down, or a weak Stuart that you know will get you home? Is the Honey the most underrated tank in history, or was it a death trap that stayed in service too long? Let us know in the comments, we want to hear your take. Outro. Thanks for watching Microdocs. If you want to see the industrial avalanche that produced thousands of these little hunters, check out our video on the 12 billion bullets right here. Subscribe and hit the bell. We're deconstructing the machines that made history.